This is the Mack and G Show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mack and G Show. This is episode 6, and we are very excited with our guest today. Before we get to that, Ricky, how are you doing?
Doing all right.
Did anything happen in the last couple of days for you?
You talking about me fasting right now?
I am talking about you fasting.
Yeah. Paul J, we've been, we had an episode on fasting. So I decided on the last podcast, since I saw my fat ass, that it's time to lose some weight. So I was like, all right, I got to fast now. So I've been fasting since Sunday. So,
good
today's
for you.
Wednesday. So how many hours is that?
That's
3 days.
I'm sorry I had those. I couldn't help it.
I'm
I had
good.
a snack right
look at it.
before
If I'm
we
in,
did
I'm
this.
in. If I'm in, it's fine.
Okay.
It's all good.
Actually, we'll have a link above if you want to see that episode, because we go into pretty good detail about what it's all about and why you and I do that, right?
Right now, I'm stem celling my ass off.
That is true.
Is it intermittent fasting?
No, I have
this
no
is
intention.
nothing.
I'm water
I do
and
wanna
coffee.
learn
That's
about
it.
You should. If you believe what they say, it's pretty incredible.
I was telling my mom
Reminds me of
today
that
that
Oasis song. Alcohol and cigarettes.
that's a good diet.
All right. So that's good. I'm doing good.
Good.
And I guess without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest. From a young age, his life was all about music. Raised in a musical family, he began singing hymns as a choir boy and later took center stage in high school musicals, landing lead roles in both his junior and senior years. His passion for performing arts led him to downtown Lynn, where he rented rehearsal space from the Hells Angels and played in local clubs, fully convinced that music was his future. But life had other plans. But over the years, he developed an incredible depth of musical knowledge, becoming a true savant, captivated by the stories of how the greats made it to the top. With a unique ability to uncover the fascinating moments behind the music, he offers rare insights into the journeys of legendary artists. It is my pleasure to introduce to the Mack and G Nation, the one and only Paul Jameson. Paul?
Thank you
What's
very
up, Paul?
much. Wow, very
Very
gracious.
fired
Thank
up
you so
that
much.
you're on. Very fired up that you're on. I feel like we could record for about 4 hours and have.
We just had a 30-minute conversation when we were setting this stuff
I know
up.
we should have had the camera on that, right? We should have the camera.
Yeah.
So I have a question. How do you transition from those early years, right, choir boy, to renting space from the Hells Angels?
Oh boy, yeah, that's interesting because, part of it was being told that you have this talent and all that, and you want to, believe people, and but at the same time, the industry and the whole profession, if you will, isn't the most stable, let's say financially. There's a lot of risk involved and things like that. And especially back in 75, 77, 6. But the idea was, how do you do that anyway? And how do you incorporate that into your life and maybe do it part-time?
Can I ask you a question?
So
If you were growing up not in the mid-70s, but in 2020, would it have been a different trajectory for you, do you think?
Yeah, maybe, possibly. Of course, we went through an experience with my family where there was an opportunity, and there is an opportunity, and all that.
Well, I hope we get into that for sure.
Yeah. So, but it's an attitude, and again, it's an understanding that if you do choose that path, then how do you take care of yourself? How do you put food in your mouth and roof over your head? And that's
Were you the
always
only one in your family, or did you have siblings that were with you? Like, did you have that? Because that's comforting, right?
Sure. Well, I mean, like I said, musical family means my father and his brothers were singers. My and his sisters. So my aunts and my uncles, a few of them were offered radio contracts back in the day.
Oh.
Which was kind of akin to like a recording contract, but couldn't do it because of the war. So that was something that, you have to go to work at GE. We got to help support the family. So again, the financial considerations came in, but they were good. Two Jacks and a Queen was the name of the act. My Uncle Frank played
I like that.
harmonica. My Aunt
None of
Betty-
them were named Jack?
Say again?
None of them were named Jack.
No.
I thought it might have been two guys named Jack. Maybe a John and a Jack.
Yeah, I know.
My head went somewhere completely else. Like today, that could be
Right. Yeah.
Are there? Do you have photos of stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Or any
Yeah.
recordings, or was that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
As
great.
a matter of fact, I found wire recordings, which was the predecessor to cassette tape.
Wow.
In my uncle's home, we were helping move after he had passed away, and I found the actual wire recorder that they used for the family and all these old tapes. So we had these wire recordings transferred over to CD, and
There's a place
this.
that'll do that.
Yes. And again, this is like, I don't know, about 20 years ago. So it was internet search and found this company and they did it. And they sent me like 23 CDs of my family singing Happy Birthday in 1932, New Year's Eve in 1955, my father playing piano, aunts and uncles singing.
That's cool.
Amazing, right? So I had
That's
two
great.
copies made of that, gave them to my uncles and who were still around. So it's always been like that. And I grew up and again, was put in the choir immediately and,
And it was singing and
piano.
And piano.
Piano up until third, fourth grade, 1971, 70, when the Big Bad Bruins took over and I couldn't play piano anymore.
Did you
because I
wanna
had to
play
play
piano then?
street hockey instead. So I
Did you
blew
like playing
off.
piano?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
A little bit.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're younger, it's like, go play piano.
No, but enough to be dangerous, right? I could fool around with it.
No, it's cool to be
But
able
I
to
was
play
also
piano.
sent to accordion lessons because my father was like, if you really want to learn how to play piano, you want to learn how to play the accordion because you're playing without looking at the keys. You're playing these chord buttons over here, but the keys are over here. And that'll give you an idea.
So how long did you do that
I was
for?
totally against it, like for a year.
You did
Okay.
that?
My older brother got guitar lessons. I'm like, I want to play guitar.
He's like,
And I'm hauling this big. I was like 7. I'm hauling this big accordion box to the.
So you come from a family of 5?
Yeah.
So were you thinking about the Jameson 5? Like were you thinking about?
We never thought of the family thing. It's funny because we probably could have done something like that. The Partridge Family was big
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
I mentioned to somebody, I had a conversation with a customer today about music. So, music and sports, right? If you're sales guys, at least for me in IT. And I have a wall of albums behind me when people are on a video call with me and guys are going like, whoa.
What is that?
And so I actually got in a conversation about that with someone today, about that whole thing.
I want to know what the albums on the wall are. Do you have
I
Kiss Double Platinum on
I
there?
have about 1,500 vinyl records in a collection.
Whoa.
I have about 1,500 45s. I have another 1,000 CDs, and I have another 1,000 CD singles, and I have about 500 12-inch vinyl singles. I have cassettes. I have 8-tracks. I have wires. I have everything. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anyway, I have a store.
What
like I said.
percentage of that do you actually listen to?
Well, again, I got all my digital music, so I can listen to that whenever I want.
Right.
But I do
So
have
it's
a
just
nice,
the thought you have
I
this.
have
like
a
that's-
turntable that I pay a lot of money to keep up because it's an old.
Do you remember when you can go to like Tower Records and it was cool, like an album came out and it was like, that's so lost right now.
No, it was an event.
It's gone.
So John and I mentioned that when we were texting earlier. This is interesting to me anyway. I don't know who else it might be to, but the communal experience of music, movies, and television is gone. It's kind of still there with things like Netflix, where we're all talking about the latest series that we watched, but there's so much variety that there really isn't that much of a communal
But
where
going
you
to the
all went to the
movies,
same movie.
to me was cool. Like there's a movie theater not too far from me. It's like Regal. You go in and it's you get your popcorn, you get your stuff, and it's like you sit there and it's that's gone. It's still there. But
Or I always bring up the whole. I remember going to the beach and everybody had the radio on WBCN in the summer. They would be playing the same song or roughly
you
a
get wishing
couple of different
on a
stations.
star at 12 o'clock. Oh, that was Kiss 108.
Yeah.
Oh, they would end
like,
that?
It was like every
Yeah.
Saturday at 12 you get wishing on a star.
And I'm wishing on the rainbow.
That's it.
Sorry.
Every Saturday at 12
That's a
o'clock.
hot song
They
to
stopped
sing.
doing that, They did it for years and
great
years.
stuff. Yeah, Maddie Siegel And of course, this was 70s, 80s, right? When disco went into new wave.
Where was David Allen Boucher?
Oh my gosh.
He might have been.
Well, and
I think he
so
was
the
like
communal
Magic.
experience.
I think he was Magic.
Hey,
Magic.
but that communal experience also extended to music. We all
Right.
went and got the new album when it came out, and you know, people rip on disco, but come on, man, we went out and danced. We went out to dance.
When I was
Like,
younger,
that's why we went out.
When I was younger, it was like wasn't cool to like disco. When I was really young, it was rock.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the '70s. But then I realized, like, when you're out at a club, everyone's dancing.
Oh.
Like they're dancing to like Earth, Wind, and Fire.
It's
and
the
like Gap
chicks,
Band.
man.
Yeah, and it's like
So I was in a band at the time playing Rush and Van Halen and Jethro Tull and rock and roll, and they're like, "Why do you like that disco, Pauly J?" And I'm like, "Well, the girls are there, number one."
It's
well,
true.
it's true. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and
Earth, Wind, and Fire is great. Listen to them. It's
we
awesome.
talked about Van Halen. I mean, the secret sauce to Van Halen was the R&B. I mean, it was as simple as that. That's Roth's influence. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Roth was the guy who brought them funk and all that, and the brothers were, you know,
How
classically
sad is it
trained
that he
pianists.
passed?
Say again?
How sad is it that he passed?
No, it's
He
terrible.
lived a hard life.
Well, he
Really?
smoked a ton.
He drank
Okay.
a ton. He smoked.
yeah,
a ton.
like
smoking,
late in
I think,
life?
is what got him.
all his whole life.
Yeah, he's a once in a, he's a, like a Mozart like guy. He's a guy, and you know, I like to remind people he was an engineer without a degree. I mean, he literally named his first guitar, that one of the first ones he ever put together, Frankenstein, because it was a Fender neck, Gibson body. Or was it the other way around? I can't remember exactly, but he's potting new terminals in there, and he's got things in there that don't even work, but they looked cool. And then he takes the paint and paints it and puts stripes
He had
on it.
that red guitar with the white stripes.
No one,
and-
I mean, what? Right? So
what he did with that guitar was
and
amazing.
tinkering with soldering irons. I mean, this is what Eddie Van Halen was all about, to get a sound. And yeah, oh, and on top of that, he won the Southern California classical piano contest from the age of like 13 to 18.
Wow.
He, and without being able to read, right? He was winning classical piano
Wow.
contests as a child.
They were like my
Oh, that
favorite
story's
band.
amazing, yeah.
I love them. Like,
Well, the father was a traveling musician, met the mother in Indonesia, like in a hut.
Mud Hut.
Was the brother jealous of the fact that Eddie was so talented?
He's
Not
a
at all.
good
They were
drummer.
like
Oh, really?
tighter than a drum.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
He's a good
well,
drummer.
you know, and Alex gave Eddie the guitar. So it was originally Alex on guitar and Eddie on drums. But Alex was out doing his paper route, and Eddie would sneak on the guitar.
And he was
Alex-
pretty good.
Right. And so Alex heard him and said, "Let's switch." That's true. That's the
I don't
story.
know that either. Wow.
And
Wow.
they say that's why Eddie's so good on the guitar, because of his percussive
Yeah.
abilities, you know, rhythm.
Yeah.
But they're just gifted. And the father was a clarinet player, you know, and an accomplished musician. And not that the mother was, but the mother ran the house with an iron fist. Anyway, we're getting off that.
So do you? I mean, if you have that many albums, can you have a favorite? Can you have a favorite band? Or is that? It's like.
Oh yeah. I mean, and again, I'm about collecting, right? So like the Beatles have a big body work, and what we were touching on earlier was, I wrote a paper about New Kids and the Beatles, because the Beatles output it from 1963 to 67, let's say 7 years. It's just astounding.
Yeah. But it changed too.
Okay, so
Like
but the
every
paper was
album.
about New Kids going from, what was the big hit? I can't even remember.
New Kids on the Block?
Yeah.
Every little step you take. Oh no, that was the other
No,
one.
wrong.
that was,
Right area though.
I'm terrible. I should
your
know
phone.
that,
Get
because
your
I'm a
phone,
Boston
Ricky.
guy.
What is it?
New Kids on the
But
Block.
even let's take New Edition and Bobby Brown. You know, there's something wrong with my line. Okay, same thing. It would have been like those guys creating like Sgt. Pepper's 4 years later in a record, which was kind of laughable, but not, because the Beatles were singing "Love Me Do" in '64. They
the
went
right
from
stuff,
"Love Me
baby.
Do," "She Loves You," yeah, to "I Am the Walrus" within 4 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Now you can say it's because of
Yeah,
whatever.
did they make the Times, or the Times was doing it, so they just went with it?
No,
Wow,
they
but
changed
the talent
everything.
involved.
You think?
I think they
No,
changed.
Paul was unbelievable. Paul's the GOAT. Paul's the GOAT because he's the ultimate musician. He knew all the instruments. He could write. He had a great voice. He looked great. He was a superstar.
So you're Paul over John?
Oh yeah, and I love John, but honestly, Paul was the business guy. Knew that you got to get out there and you got to make records and you got to tour and Paul was the guy pushing everybody.
And he's still
Yeah,
chugging
man,
along.
He's the
right?
GOAT.
Yeah.
So he's probably 80, right? He's in his 80s.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He has his own band, and that band's been together longer than any of his bands.
Well, Jag. The other the big one is always the Beatles or the Stones. Everybody always asks that. Who's
And what's your answer?
Beatles?
Beatles,
Okay.
but the Stones are
but
close
it's a tough
too.
one because live it's the Stones because they've stuck together for 40 years.
Yeah.
The Beatles didn't have that chance. They did actually, but Lennon was murdered.
Yep.
But oh my gosh, I mean, just the breadth. I mean, the Beatles, the Stones copied the Beatles. Let's be honest. I mean,
I think the
everything
Beatles
they
influenced
did.
everybody, though.
Satanic Majesty's Request is Peppers. They changed their style. Jaggers will be the first one to admit it.
Woody, though? Has he ever?
Oh, yeah. He inducted them into the Hall of Fame, gave a great speech.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, it's great if you ever watch that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Stones
Where
have a
is that,
big
Joe?
body of
Put that
work,
up on
too.
the screen, Johnny.
Okay.
Like they do in Rogan.
We can do that.
No, with Jaggers gone, they opened the door for everybody. The Beatles gave them their first hit single. They wrote a song, "I Want to Be a Man," which was given to the Stones, which the Stones made a hit out of.
Wow.
Were the Stones around? No, were they in the 60s?
Yeah.
So it was
67.
was it before?
I mean, they were part of the British
Around the same
invasion
time,
with the
same,
Beatles.
like similar time, right?
Right. But when the Beatles broke up and all that and went solo and were somewhat successful, Ringo and George were more successful than John and Paul, which was a riot. Ringo had the first hits, well, George and Ringo, My Sweet Lord, and Ringo, It Don't Come Easy, and all that stuff before John and Paul ever had any solo hits. But the Stones
That changed.
amped it up in the 70s. Like all of a sudden, it was like they were the only one.
They had Tattoo You in the 80s. They were like, they kept going.
Yeah, but Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed and all these records that came after the Beatles were the Beatles. Like those records are incredible. And Jack, Sympathy, Jumpin' Jack Flash.
One of my favorite songs.
I mean,
Sympathy's-
my God, and all of a sudden Jagger's writing historical references and not a lot. So yeah, it is kind of a toss up there, but I just think the music of the Beatles.
What's your three? What's your second? Which after those two?
I go, it's funny. It's.
I'm hoping that you go with this one, which is because I know that they mean
He's
somewhat
you're
personal.
away from
it's
my
something
three, my
special to
top
you because
three.
you saw them. If it's who I'm thinking of, you saw them in concert, like when they first came to Boston. Are we talking about the same band? No, maybe not. It's one of my favorite bands.
Well, okay, maybe not, but I've always been a huge Elton John fan.
Okay,
all right,
not that.
And so I think he's up there. Even and his band was amazing in the '70s. I could talk about that, but the Eagles are the other one. that I
Okay,
was
still
huge.
haven't said it. Didn't you see U2 when they were at the?
Okay, well then there's another. That's right.
like
So
U2.
it's hard to say the greatest of all time, but as far as like recordings and songs that stick around, it's the Beatles.
Right.
Those songs like and a lot of this does come down to the songwriting, like the songs. Case in point, 2 weeks ago I went to. I heard Three Dog Night was at the fair, but it was just Danny Hutton, one dog out of the three. Yeah. But I'm going because I've read stories about Danny Hutton. Danny Hutton helped Elton John when he first came over to America and took him to parties and introduced him to Bob Dylan. And, when Three Dog Night was the shit. And Elton was the new guy. Anyway, and Danny Hutton was kind of crazy, but those songs are unbelievable. And there's like 15 of them, like Black and White, Liar, one they did by Harry Nilsson, Joy to the World. It goes on, and all these hits. And so I run down, I get in my car and I go down to St. Anne's parking lot, pull in, there's one spot. I walk the rail trail down to the Topsfield Fair.
You went with Big Love, didn't you?
Huh?
Didn't you go with Big Love?
Yes, they were there.
Yeah.
So Dennis is there.
Yeah.
And so I did the beer garden, had my IPA, like 28% IPA. And then we went in and we got like front row in the general admission.
I heard you were talking to that dude.
I made a comment. I said, Danny Hutton in the Hollywood Hills is what I said.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, that's my buddy there, my drunk buddy or something. I don't know. It was kind of stupid, but
Was he okay? Was he good?
oh, he was really good. And
Okay.
again, they had young kids playing. They had his son playing bass, so the kid was really good, and the keyboard player was good. And they had another old timer there, but the songs are like ingrained in your brain. And again, when you think about McCartney or these guys, and Jagger and Richards wrote some great songs.
You're leaving out like Led Zeppelin.
Right,
Yeah.
and now you're well, again the length of it, right? Like that's why I say the Eagles, because the Eagles kind of got back together and they still play, whether they're as talented as they used to be, but they
Did
had
one of
somewhat
them
of a long
die?
career.
Did one of
Aerosmith
them-
had a long career.
Who died in the Eagles?
The Who, the Who were always in the conversation. Pink Floyd's always in the conversation. But as far as just like who really dominates the public's imagination and music, the Beatles are
over
well,
time.
and plus my reading, I have novel, all the memoirs about Brian Wilson. I got a book by Charlie Wyman, and I mean even the Eagles and all these other. When they saw the Beatles, it was changed their lives. I mean the Beatles. So and of course Elvis is in that conversation too, but in a different mode, because now you're talking about like the crooner, like the Sinatra era, going kind of back into the 50s and the 40s. And I love Sinatra. I mean,
Yeah.
Sinatra with the Count
like,
Basie.
how do you compare Elvis, who to me, and I don't know him as much as you do, but like McCartney was a songwriter and a musician. And like to me, Elvis was the New Kids of the Block.
Yeah,
of
was a
his time.
performer.
He was a performer who everybody loved, and he was great. But he wasn't writing songs, was he?
No.
I mean,
And you know what? Pull up the Bob Costas interview with Ray Charles and watch Ray Charles react to when Bob says, they called Elvis the king of rock and roll, and Ray's like,
but he did influence music though. Like he
Oh my
had his
God.
influence on music for sure.
well, and I'm
Elvis.
not saying it was all race, but Ray was the guy, right? Ray was the guy who was rocking and rolling, and Elvis was good-looking guy, kid.
Yeah.
But right, but come on now, the King. I don't think. Oh, you got to watch it. He goes, I'll probably get in trouble for saying this.
How long ago would this have been?
Say again.
How long ago would that have been, that interview?
Oh, probably about 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, maybe, because
Okay.
he's been gone for a while.
Yeah.
But when you listen to what he did and all that, and that again, it's generational. You could say Sinatra's the greatest of all time, but you're generational.
He had a
But
great
those
voice.
songs
He
last,
was a
too.
good singer, great voice.
Are we talking about now?
Sinatra.
Sinatra.
Summer Winds.
He's got his
Well,
own
again, the
channel
band,
on
one of my
satellite
favorite-
radio. I know that.
Yeah. Sinatra was like larger than life, right? Like people
Let me
worship-
throw out a couple curveballs because they're not. I wouldn't put him in that group, right? But like Billy Joel,
Oh yeah.
good.
Great
me.
long career,
Right.
and
Writes
stop,
good
stop
songs,
trying to
right?
write.
Let me ask you a
pop
question.
singles.
Name one song he did that moved you.
In the middle of the night. No,
To me, he never did for me. He's a good performer.
I like an Italian restaurant, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the music of my
Stranger was a good
I saw
album.
I saw Elton John and Billy Joel like at
Yeah.
like
Oh, look at
was
that.
it
Now you're
Great Woods?
trashing him. Huh? Now you're trashing him. You saw him in concert.
I
and now
didn't
you're
say
trashing
no.
on him.
I wouldn't put him up here.
We have this recorded,
That's good.
Well, he still has a career. I mean, a long career.
Elton John to me, you
Like
can't
Elton.
compare to like Billy.
He was
Joel.
compared
Again,
all
I
the
didn't
time.
say that
No,
they
no,
were
no.
there. I'm just saying,
Shit,
like,
know what you're saying. I'm just to me.
right.
Billy
He was
Joel's-
compared to Elton forever too. He actually had Elton's band after Elton fired two of the guys. They had those guys play with Billy up at Cabot Ranch in Colorado, try to give him more of an Elton Johnny sound, and Billy didn't like it and went back to New York and recorded with his homeboys in New York.
Wow.
What else? You were going to give us another curveball.
No, and I'm trying to remember what's Howard Jones.
Don't crack up.
Bend your brain.
Yeah.
Right? And I've been waiting for so long.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And no one is to blame. So
So-
I was listening to that earlier with my wife. That song came on. She's like, this is a really cool song.
You know, that was the 80s, man. That was the second British invasion. That was Duran Duran, Howard Jones,
Yeah.
you know. I went through it with Colin. He's got 50,000.
Why don't you put this on? It's a good thing.
It's on.
The Colin story.
The whole thing's on. We just
I
never
don't know
off.
if we're back, but Colin story's interesting.
Yeah. No, it's all on.
Yeah, he's, but he went to Instagram fame like overnight with all these followers, right? And he does whatever he wants. Look, he's never had the manager. He does whatever he wants. It's cool to his followers. They like him. They send him
Yeah,
stuff.
but at that amount, can you start making money?
He doesn't make money off it.
Why?
You know what?
Because he doesn't want to, or you don't until you get more
Oh,
than that?
no, you need somebody to direct it. You need somebody running that shit, man. It's not that he really doesn't know how, but how do you really monetize it?
Well,
Like
because
I
that's
said-
not his
Well,
end
like I said
game's not
before-
that.
Like
right?
I said before, I was ready to like I need $500,000 to take him around the country and tour him.
That's how much.
Well, it was COVID too, though, where everything was kind of shut down. Well, think about it. I told you the Van Halen story is the greatest. Again, back to Van Halen. They sold 2 million albums. They toured the world twice. They came back and they owed Warner Brothers $1 million because Warner Brothers paid for everything. Like, and you owed.
They didn't realize they had to pay it back.
Was that their first
It
concert?
turned around because they knew these guys were going to make money because they were great.
Yeah.
So the investment paid off. But Halen likes to tell the story how they came back and they owed.
I mean, that's what happens. Is that their first album where like you're selling out? You know, you have to go out. You have to spend all the money.
Singapore, Brazil, Australia, all over the U.S. The other great thing the hard thing about making it in America is whether you're on TV or whatever,
You got to pay Diddy.
You got to tour.
You gotta pay Diddy.
Northeast, Mid-Atlantic.
No, you gotta acknowledge that. You gotta pay Diddy.
What did he say?
You gotta pay
Oh,
Diddy.
pay Diddy.
Diggity, diggity, diggity.
Yeah, you got to pay Diddy.
And I never really liked him, man. I thought
Well,
he was
you
just,
must have been
I
right.
thought he was
You
the
were right.
ultimate sampler, like with every breath he'd take.
Do you,
Yeah.
you know what Sting said about that? So I guess Elton John told Sting about that someone sampled your song, and
Yeah.
Sting sued Diddy.
Next thing you know, Sting's up on stage
Yeah.
jamming with him and Biggie.
But Diddy said, Sting said that Diddy pays him so much a year that
Yeah,
he pays
Diddy's
for
okay
all his
with it?
kids' colleges, like millions of dollars. And then I guess someone else sampled another song of
He's
his.
not getting that money anymore.
Yeah, well,
But think
maybe not.
about what it takes though to promote. This kid's coming to town. So what was interesting was who my son did a duet with Tori Kelly, who's an up and coming.
That was awesome.
Shit was great.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she's great, but she's like a B list, right? Not A list. She could sell out when promoted right, like an Orpheum maybe. That's about 4,000 or 5,000 people.
Right.
But you think about what it takes to promote and get kids to go, even like the Paradise, right? Have you ever gone to a new music night at the Paradise recently? You know
No.
Paradise,
Yeah.
right? Com Ave.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's a bunch of freaking 19-year-olds. I saw the Girl in Red. You ever hear about them? I try to keep up.
Good for
So I
you.
went with a friend.
Was U2 Paradise? Is that what it
Yes.
is? Yeah, yeah.
And this, actually, I'll play a song for you by this band. It's a chick singing with these young kids, and it sounds just like you too. And I was there at the Paradise watching them, and I said to my friend, this is just like U2 back in 1984. The same surf guitar,
Yeah.
and I'm like, what a fucking
Kind of
ride.
a distant, where the edge kind of had like a distant
back
sound.
to the whole, it's subjective, but you have to. It costs a lot of money to do that. You get a manager.
So you were
and then
thinking
you
about
start
doing this?
playing in clubs, or you play out, and you have to make money for the bar, right? So you got to sell tickets to the show. You can't just show up at a show with and have something. People don't get that either. They don't understand that.
This is a little aside, and you're probably going to vomit when I tell you this, but a woman that I work with was telling me that she's in Toronto. Taylor Swift's coming to Toronto. Just for fun, she figured she'd call up to see what the tickets are going for on Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
What do you think a ticket's going for on Ticketmaster
God.
for Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
$5,000.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason for that too. I mean, there's no more media. There's no more at the live performances where the money's made.
But that's nuts. Who's spending $5,000? I don't care if it's.
Oh, people are. We're talking
Obviously
about
they are,
We're
but
talking about the
everywhere.
boomer.
Oh my God.
It's absolutely amazing. You know, there's cover bands like tribute bands playing up at Seaglass up in Salisbury. And the boomers are shelling out $100 to sit at a table like in front of like some band doing Fleetwood Mac, and they're good.
Right.
So it's another thing.
Paul J. What about
That's boomers.
Fleetwood Mac? What's his name? Underrated guitarist.
Lindsay
Buckingham.
Yeah, very good.
He's good, huh?
My guitar player goat is Joe Walsh. And I know
Do you like
everybody
him?
says
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Eddie
Was he
Van
always in
Halen.
the Eagles? Oh, did he came? He was come and go, right? from
So
them?
Joe Walsh sold his first Gibson that he bought to Jimmy Page back in 1969 after Jimmy loved the James Gang. You remember the James Gang,
Right.
what Joe played? And they were friends because they were on the same bills back then, same concerts. And he sold Jimmy what Jimmy calls "Give You Number One," like where he played all the great, you know, "Stairway to Heaven" and "Black Dog." Right? It's Joe Walsh's guitar. Okay, that tells you one thing. And then Joe joins the Eagles, has this big hit with Rocky Mountain Way and records up in the Colorado Mountains. And this guy's a trombone player, multi-instrumentalist, keyboard player, arranger, knows charts, knows all that stuff. And then joins the Eagles, which was the idea of, he was friends with them and they'd done some recording together. But when he joins the Eagles in 75, 76, he's playing, that year he played, Hotel California and all that great stuff he played. But while he was recording it in Miami at Biscayne Studios, Hotel California, down the hall is Barry Gibb. Barry Gibb's with his younger brother Andy, putting Andy Gibb's first record together. And he sees Joe in the hallway and Joe's like, or whatever. And he says, hey, hey man, you want to come down and play some licks? I'm doing this record for my brother. And Joe Walsh plays the lead guitar, rhythm guitar on both I Just Want to Be Your Everything and Love Is Thicker Than Water by Andy Gibb, which both go to number one, that year. Okay. Same year, Walsh, at another recording studio, bumps into Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Keith Emerson, and actually the drummer, Carl Palmer, asked Joe to play on their album Works, where they all did individual sides. And Joe plays on a track by Carl Palmer doing scat vocals. So that year, I mean, he had that's a breath.
So
of
when
work.
you talk about, hey, do you want to?
It's amazing that go from that pop,
right?
Eagles, ELP.
No, but when
prog
the
rock.
Gibbs say, do you want to come in and play? Does he go in and then that's the recording?
Yeah, they did sessions and the whole thing.
Like he comes in and goes, what are you doing? Boom, 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 boom.
Oh,
and then all of a sudden
right.
It's not like he works with him for months. He just goes in and
no, but Barry knew Barry Gibb was a genius, and Barry knew good music and good playing when he heard it. Just like kind of like Donald Fagen and Walter Becker of Steely Dan, who eventually couldn't deal with a regular band. They needed the best musicians, and so they hired guns, the best studio musicians, and. And that's making records too. That's different than a live performance. But back to Walsh being the GOAT, I mean, that's kind of a cool breath of work. He had his own hits. Life's been good. And they've been jamming and if you watch that guy play, he's amazing. And he learned slide from Don Felder helped him learn slide, who was an Eagle player. But Felder knew Dwayne Allman in Florida. So, the Almonds are
there's
also...
a reason
the
why
Almonds are also thrown
you have
up
all
there.
these albums.
They're also thrown up there as the greatest.
Yeah.
There's those whole genres. There's the Dead and the Almonds. Those two bands were massive.
So I wanted to ask you a question. You've been to a gazillion concerts probably, right? You can either do, or both. You can either say the best concert you've ever been to or the strangest or the weirdest concert that you've ever been to.
You mentioned U2 earlier. So, yeah, probably the best concert I've ever been to is U2 at the Garden, St. Patrick's Day, 1994.
What album was that?
That was Achtung Baby.
Yeah.
And, they were huge, right, after the Joshua Tree and all that. And
and coming back to Boston. Boston was
Coming
one of
back
their
on
first
St.
spots.
Paddy's Day.
Irish American,
new
right?
sound too. And the stage was amazing. Again, they, a lot of these bands will pump in the millions they made back into the show for the next tour. Again, back to the whole, it's a business. You got to give the people a show.
Where do you invest?
They had
Yep.
belly dances. Edge ended up marrying one of the belly dancers.
Did he really?
Yeah, during Mysterious Ways, she'd come out. It's all right.
Are they still
It's
together?
all
Do you know
right.
if they're still together?
I look back on that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But I look back on that. They started as a Christian band. I mean, they were like really wearing it on their sleeves, like we're Rejoice and,
Well, there was a little bit of the
Jerusalem,
No,
one
but
of the
there was a
songs.
little bit of the Irish Troubles thing too, right?
Yeah, but
they were picking a side though, weren't
when
they?
they came to the first American tour, they had a chaperone on tour with them to keep them from all the darkness
Yeah.
and the
That's
chicks.
I saw them
my
in
God.
Foxborough. Must have been after that.
I've seen them a couple
But
times.
when I heard The Edge for like a New Year's Day, I got the chills.
The songs are epic. I mean, Where the Streets Have No Name was written as a concert opener. They wrote it specifically for that. So, the crescendo, and it's this whole phenomenal. And I've seen them a few times at the guy. My brother got to know him too. So I have pictures of me and Bono hanging backstage. And
was he cool to hang out with?
Very cool because
Oh,
they
really?
were unpretentious. My brother knew him from the early days of Carter Allen and BCN and all that.
Okay.
So
he acted
we-
like an average
we
dude.
get
He
free
just seems like
tickets.
he's so.
Oh, I was acting like a schoolboy. I had this is back in the day when you had to buy those one-time 24 exposure Kodaks.
yeah.
And he's like, don't take pictures backstage. It's not cool. I'm like, fuck you. I'm fucking taking a picture with my girlfriend, Nancy. Get in there.
So you still have it? You still have it?
I do. Yeah. I'll send I should send
We'll
it.
share it. We can share it. If
Yeah,
you're okay
I'll
with that.
send it along.
Wow. So craziest one or weirdest one or weirdest thing that happened to you at a concert or anything? No?
Oh, my first concert, Peter Frampton at the Boston Garden, 1976. Frampton Comes Alive, and first concert I've ever been to. First concert I've ever been to. Drinking champagne at Wonderland, the Blue Line.
Yeah.
In the parking lot with a bunch of seniors. I'm a sophomore.
Okay.
Had that earlier that afternoon, had rolled up with my friend Andre our first bag of weed into about 15
Andre.
tight pin joints, pink papers.
Yeah.
So we had a bag of pink joints.
Yeah.
And we got on the tee and we went in and we saw Peter Frampton. And it was amazing. As soon as the lights went out, though, the lights go out and all of a sudden a jacket falls on my head, like almost like knocks me over. And it's a brand new, like, remember the Levi's sheepskin interior with a big hood, collar jacket?
Yeah.
Remember, like, they were the coolest thing you could ever own? Fell on me. And it's got a pair of keys in it. And I'm like, holding it up and it's dark and nobody, it's mine, pretty much. I left
So
the
you
keys
still-
with
you still
security
have
when
it?
I left.
You
I
still
left the
have it?
keys. Sit.
You still have it? You still have
No,
the jacket?
no. But that was weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there was a time actually when a record executive from Island Records at a U2 show dropped a joint down my pants because she was sitting behind me and it burnt. And I got up and danced around because she burnt my ass with her. Yeah.
Did she apologize?
No, she didn't.
Okay. Got it.
Because again, it was chaotic and dark and all that. And I'm like, what are you? Yeah. And I didn't want to, I didn't want to give her a hard time.
I don't. So around that time for you, were you supposed to be? I always thought you were supposed to be banged up when you went to a concert. Like that's how I grew up. Like my sister's, like it was always like you.
It's really weird, man. So back to the recording of my dad, New Year's Eve, 1955 party, and Danny takes the microphone after he sang, and he's kind of slurring, and I'm listening to my dad, a little buzzed on New Year's Eve in 55, and I'm going, fuck, I know where I get it from. Because even now, like I played a houseboat.
New Year's Eve.
I played a houseboat 2 years ago, and I jammed, and somebody filmed it, and they showed me the film, and I tried to not drink during the day until like the performance, but it was gorgeous out, and we didn't play till 3, and I started drinking at like 1, and I'm like, all of a sudden now I'm like a little, and I'm very particular about it.
Yeah.
You might not have noticed, but I noticed, So, yeah, I always associate it with partying.
Yeah.
Even
I'm just
jamming.
saying it was always.
Even jamming.
But you were a musician. I wasn't. I just used to like to go to concerts kind of band. Like,
Yeah, but same
it just,
thing.
to me, it
Same
made it
thing.
more
You're
fun.
getting off on it.
Yeah, we would drive down there. We were like,
No, but there's a level to it, right? Like,
Well, the psychedelic-
banged up means you might be like too far, but like you want to feel joy.
No, the idea was right. You get psychedelic
it just made it
experience
more
by getting
fun.
stoned.
Yeah,
and
but
then
you don't
going-
want to vomit and then be like, oh, I don't remember those
No,
dudes.
and that's the drinking. But the smoking was
I never
about,
really
like,
drank as much. It was more
the
like
smoking was
weed.
getting high and then hearing the music, seeing the
Yeah, no,
lights.
always.
You know, in the darkness, and I light my lighter.
Which is now your cell phone.
Oh my gosh!
We used to
Right.
sneak up front because I was, always like small. We snuck up front and like,
Yeah.
Michael Anthony's like throwing picks to us, and I wanted Eddie's fucking pick. You know what I mean? So he's throwing them at us. I'm going like, nah, I want it from him. Like, and so like Eddie would fling a pick.
What year was this again?
1984.
Oh man!
So it was
you
like
saw that
it
tour
was
at the Central.
Jump. It was the 1984 album.
That's
And it was
great.
at the Central.
So I
That's
never
when-
saw
You'll
them.
never forget when it was.
You know how
I turned down an opportunity to see him at the Cape Cod Coliseum back it up Sabbath. I didn't go to that. My friends went to that. So when they were just backing up Sabbath before the first record, I could have seen them. I had to wait until 2017 when the Roth got back together with Wolfgang, and I took my son Evan to see.
Yeah,
them.
I didn't see that. I mean, I saw Sammy later.
But you saw that.
Anyway.
You saw that show, man.
That show was-
84 was the height of
That
it.
show was awesome. It was
Yeah.
awesome. And again,
Drop dead legs.
like, oh,
David
man.
Lee and
It was just like
super form.
it was. No, it was just like Jump was huge for them.
Another
Paramount.
awesome rock star. Just like his mentor, well, the guy who recorded them first, Gene Simmons.
Oh,
That's
You know
why
that.
I asked you. You didn't hear me, but did you have the Kiss double platinum album on your wall? Because I was in the Kiss Army when I was a kid.
No, but I
It
had
was
Kiss
like the double
Alive. I
platinum.
had Kiss Alive. I mean, Kiss Alive was the shit.
Yeah.
I got the first time I ever threw up, got drunk was to Kiss Alive. And I was drinking gin, cold gin. Ace Frehley.
jeez.
Kiss was big, and they were like really good
Oh, my
merchandisers, and he was
Simmons.
Like, he was a salesman.
But to find out later that Simmons wasn't even partying,
really,
did not drink, did not smoke, never.
Oh, wow.
He was
Wow.
ever.
He was
he
just
was totally
business.
against it.
Yeah.
He, did Wilt Chamberlain to about 1,000 women.
yeah.
That was his thing. And who wrote Hey Deanie? Oh, a guy named Eric Carmen. He used to be in the Raspberries.
All by myself. Is that the all myself?
Please go all the way.
Oh, that is a great tune.
Is he
Yeah,
the all by myself guy?
And
that
all
Eric?
by myself, which is epic.
yeah, that is a good tune. That is a good tune. So listen, we are coming up against it.
Not the Celine Dion version.
No.
The original Eric
Right, I
Carmen.
know which one.
That's
No,
that's
no,
the
no.
one. So listen, Paul, so happy to finally have on the show. Looking forward to the next conversation. Good luck in your performance tonight.
Thank you.
And as we always end it, Ricky,
We'll see ya. No, no good.
that's it.